Yay! I'm flying a plane. Hooray! This actually is really cool though. Nice. Australia and New Zealand are not really renowned for their roller coasters. We have a few worldies and some interesting parks, but ultimately, if you're a coaster enthusiast planning a trip for the biggest and best, there are probably other places that you'd consider first. But maybe you're coming down under anyway, and you want to know what the Land of Oz and the Kiwis next door have to offer. Well, noble Thuzy, you have come to the right place. Today, I'm giving a full ranking of every permanent roller coaster in both Australia and New Zealand. So which coasters are worth a visit, and which ones should you avoid? Come along with me as we count down every roller coaster in Australia and New Zealand. Coming in at number 40 is Motor Coaster at Dreamworld. This might be the only roller coaster in Australia or New Zealand that I can't name a single good thing about. Opening at Dreamworld in 2007, this was the first of Intamin's family launch coaster model, their take on the motorbike or straddle coaster, and they tried to do something a little bit different with the restraints. To see how that went for them, here's a deleted scene from a previous video of me trying to use the test seat. These are the motor coaster restraints. They're unlike most other motorbike coasters from Zamperla or Vekoma or anything like that, and they're a little bit difficult. So you have to place the feet inside these angled footrests and rest your knees against these pads. This goes against your back, and the whole front of the motorbike rests down on the thighs. For a person of my size, it can be a little bit constricted because of the length of my legs, but the main problem you'll find is if you are larger around the thighs or around the body, because this is very restrictive. It slows down the operations a whole lot, quite painful. These, I'm glad that they were changed, honestly. This is not the best roller coaster restraint design that's ever come up with by a long way. As you can see, the main problem with Motor Coaster is the unnecessary complexity of these restraints, which causes a lot of problems. It's a killer for operations as riders get confused and often aren't secured properly, needing the operator's assistance. It's restrictive on larger and taller riders as well. And of course, it's quite uncomfortable, with the rider's weight bearing on their knees and groin, while the front of the motorbike staples and pinches quite hard on their thighs. But even without that awful riding position, Motor Coaster doesn't do an awful lot of anything right. The launch is fairly average and difficult to enjoy, and the banking and turns of the layout are too drawn out, meaning the ride is fairly slow, meandering, and forceless. Aesthetically, the ride is quite an eyesore, with the layout sitting on a patch of dirt, and the theming mainly being reduced to the garish colours of the faded, plastic-looking bikes. Ultimately, it just doesn't do anything right, and it's the one coaster that I have no love for whatsoever. I'll be glad to see Dreamworld develop this area into something much better eventually. Up next at number 39 is Dragon Express at Adventure World. I'm more cautious about criticising this coaster because I know it's designed for kids, so my body shape might have a lot to do with how much I hate it. But really, it is a car crash. This Zamperla kiddie coaster model opened at the park in 2003, and it's clear that they've improved a lot in the 22 years since. Dragon Express is a simple single helix layout, but the profiling on the track is absolutely god-awful. Riders are jolted hard into the sides of the train repeatedly, especially on the final corner, which tries to do some weird little trick-track maneuver with the banking. It's very bizarre, and I don't know what they could have been trying to accomplish with it except pain. The small cars with tight lap bars mean that pain is only amplified, and the ride doesn't do itself any favours in terms of appearance either, with a very plain station and a simple layout on a plot of dirt. It sits higher than Motor Coaster because at least you're sitting in a normal human position for this ride, but Adventure World deserves a lot better. Moving on to number 38, and it's Kenny's Forest Flyer at Dreamworld. This is another coaster that's quite high on my priority list for replacement at Dreamworld as they continue to upgrade and renovate throughout the park. It's just not a fun ride model in the slightest, and it's a remnant of the dark ages of Vekoma. This is an old model Vekoma SFC, one of the original layouts which opened in 2002. Before Vekoma became known for the smooth and innovative clone layouts that they're producing today, they were mostly famous for their cheap clone models, including the Boomerang, the SLC, the Junior Coaster, and the SFC, or Suspended Family Coaster. Kenny's Forest Flyer is a product of that time, and the thing about this particular model is that, well, it sucks. The trains feature unnecessarily bulky over-the-shoulder restraints that pin you down by the shoulders quite hard. And no, I won't give this ride the same benefit of the doubt as I do with Dragon Express. This is a family coaster. It's meant to accommodate both kids and their parents. If an adult can't fit comfortably, you did a bad job. But the main problem is that the layout is forceless, rattly, really terribly paced, and just plain old uncomfortable. There's nothing really to like about it at all. I have a soft spot for it as one of my very first credits, but particularly as other parks nearby start to open up new Vekoma SFCs that show exactly how much they've improved, I think its time is surely running out. These SFCs are just not a good model in the slightest. Up next at number 37 is the Keith Monorail at Don Mosley Playground. This is a ride that I have a lot of love for, but ultimately it's punching above its weight when comparing to full-scale roller coasters. The product of a design by South Australian engineer Grant Telfer, the Keith Monorail opened at what is now the Don Mosley Playground in 1980. It's a simple human-powered design, and it has become a highlight for tourists stopping over on the drive between Melbourne and Adelaide. There's a lot of charm to these human-powered coasters, and that's why it ranks above the other three coasters, which I think are objectively bad rides. While the monorail is forceless, slow, and essentially a piece of playground equipment that found its way onto RCDB somehow, I could easily have much more fun messing around and riding the monorail over and over again, compared to even one ride on any of the catastrophes below it. I mean, just look at this joy. It may stand barely a meter off the ground and pick up such a little speed that sometimes you don't even undulate backwards, but charm, nostalgia, and a love for the simple things in life gives the monorail enough points in my books to carry it above the three objectively bad coasters in Australia. So the monorail marks the beginning of the just average section of our rankings, and up next at number 36 is Crazy Coaster at Adventure Park Geelong. SBF Visa's spinning coaster model has become one of the most popular models on Earth, being mass-produced at small theme parks, family entertainment centres, and much more all over the globe. Adventure Park Geelong, a small water park and amusement centre on the Mornington Peninsula, opened theirs in 2016. All in all, the experience on these family spinners is quite fun, as the spinning cars guarantee a different ride every time, and there can sometimes be actually some decent lateral forces if you get the right timing. But ultimately, they are pretty slow, so don't go in with your expectations super high. What costs Crazy Coaster some points is its entire lack of landscaping, theming, or aesthetic effort, and the inclusion of the seatbelts added to the lap bar, which are completely unnecessary and quite uncomfortable, especially if they get wet from riders who've been on the water slides. Overall, it's just fine. It's there, and I wouldn't go out of my way to ride it again. Up next at number 35 is Little Nipper at Luna Park Sydney, as we continue working our way through the kiddie coasters. Little Nipper is a Preston and Barbieri model, and it does win some points for the cute train design and not being entirely boring looking, even though, like Crazy Coaster, it is just installed on a patch of concrete. However, Little Nipper is not without its problems. Preston and Barbieri's bizarre, top-heavy train design features very little legroom, restrictive lap bars, and some strange design choices that make it actually inaccessible for what should be its target audience. For those who aren't familiar, Luna Park Sydney's height restrictions are separated into yellow, green, and red, in the wrong order for some reason. I'm not sure why they picked traffic light colours but didn't do it in traffic light order, but hey, what do I know? Anyway, you would think that the kiddie coaster would be designed to be able to accommodate young kids accompanied by adults. But no. Because of the lap bar and car design, riders with red wristbands, the lowest category, cannot ride Little Nipper at all, and those with green wristbands, the second category, have to be accompanied. Which makes the ride a little redundant, really, because kids with green wristbands are also able to ride Wild Mouse and Boomerang with an accompanying adult, so this is just a smaller, more boring coaster trying to appeal to exactly the same height and age demographic as the bigger, better coasters. Am I the only one who's seeing this? Surely Little Nipper should be mostly for smaller kids, right? Anyway, I just really don't like Preston and Barbieri as a manufacturer, and Little Nipper isn't particularly great. It's uncomfortable and weirdly designed, but it's not awful, I guess. Moving on from that rant to number 34, and it's Choco Express at Rainbow's End, the first New Zealand representation on the list. I don't have an awful lot to say about this one. It's a kiddie coaster, and I'm not allowed to ride it because I don't have a kid. And that makes me sad because I like credits. It's a fairly standard model by SBF Visa, double helix layout, so nothing particularly special, and nothing outstanding in terms of theming either. From an outsider's perspective, the SBF lap bars look better than Preston and Barbiere's, but there's nothing particularly inspiring about this ride to me, so I figure it fits right here. And New Zealand gets another bit of representation at number 33 because coming up next is Gonzales roller coaster at Crystal Mounted, definitely the rarest of the 4 credits in New Zealand. This park is very bizarre, so it makes sense that they also have a bizarre little credit by an Italian manufacturer called L&T Systems. Except there's also a whole mystery surrounding that because the coaster opened here in 2008, by which time L&T Systems was already long defunct. So it's clearly a second-hand model, but where did it come from? Nobody seems to know. Anyway, the park runs this coaster in sessions, so you'll have to check everything else out at the park while you wait for your ride, and I actually highly recommend you do. It's a very strange place. But as for the coaster, it's even stranger. The pacing of the layout is all out of whack and very confusing. It seems to go slower than intended sometimes, faster than intended at others. It just doesn't feel like much calculation was done by the engineers here. Force-wise, there's nothing to it. But it's comfortable, and the cars are perfectly fine, even for taller adult riders like me. I don't have a lot else to say about this one. Weird coaster, weird park, and it's just okay. Nothing special about it at all. But one coaster that certainly is quite special is our number 32, which is the roller coaster at Green Valley Farm. Yet another absolutely bizarre park with a really strange credit to boast. Green Valley Farm is a family-owned playground and amusement park located near Tinga in New South Wales, and their one credit is a human-powered coaster inspired by the designs of Grant Telfer. Compared to the Keith Monorail, the Green Valley Farm coaster is larger, longer, and faster, and it's just a little bit out of control. Perhaps even dangerously out of control. Now, while the Green Valley Farm roller coaster does certainly seem more of the scale of a roller coaster compared to the Keith Monorail, which is more in the realms of playground equipment, it is still a human-powered contraption, and I can't rank it too highly. The seats are also solid steel, meaning you'll have to brace and expect some bruising along the way. There's one moment that's particularly violent towards the bottom of the valley. But for charm and quirkiness, it's probably the best that Australia has to offer. If you can brave pushing that car all the way up the ramp, and then brace your butt for an absolute battering, you're in for a wild ride that you can't get anywhere else in the world. We've got another credit that's way off the beaten path coming in at number 31, Magic Mountain's Sapphire Speedster Coaster. Magic Mountain is yet another pretty bizarre place. The fact that it's still running at all is something of a miracle to me, with the death of the family amusement park and increasing urbanization away from small country towns like Merimbula. But lo and behold, out there in this tiny town, which has a population of less than 4,000? Jesus, that's even smaller than I thought. But in any case, they have a theme park, and it's home to a roller coaster. Sapphire Speedster, originally known as the Diamond Python, is one of the rides of all time. It's an off-the-shelf Pinfari Zyklon that proudly and incorrectly proclaims to be the last manually operated roller coaster in Australia. In general, I would say that this ride is just there. There's nothing good about it, there's nothing bad about it. Some of the drops are kind of fun, you do slam on the brakes pretty hard, and you'll leave the ride thinking not much other than, yeah, that happened. Sapphire Speedster isn't bad, but everything above it on this list does at least one thing well, and I just can't think of anything specific that Sapphire Speedster does. It's just fine. It doesn't do much. Now, you might be shocked to find that the next entry at number 30 is Bug Run at Aussie World. A wacky worm above a Zyklon, you say? That's ludicrous. But like I said, everything in the top 30 on this list does at least one thing particularly well, and for Bug Run, that's theming. We can trash talk wacky worms all we like, but at the end of the day, the ride is built for kids, and when you've got cute, bright, colourful theming like this ride does, I simply have to take a step back and give credit to them. For what it is, Bug Run is a very nicely presented ride. And they didn't have to go to all that effort. Look at Little Nipper and Choco Express. Kids will often be happy with some bright colours and a ride vehicle that looks like a choo-choo train. But Aussie World went above and beyond, and I've got to give them kudos. Slow as it may be, it is one of Australia's best kiddie coasters purely for the effort put into its presentation. Is it going to be that fun for an adult? Probably not, but if you're bringing the kids along, they'll love it. It earns a place in the top 30. Up next at number 29 is a coaster that I don't really know how to rank or even describe. We're talking about Gold Rush at Rainbow's End. A little bit of backstory on this one. In the 1980s, Rainbow's End built their very own log flume in-house, and it turned out to be a pretty resounding success. In fact, to this day, it's probably still my favorite ride at the park. I think it's absolutely excellent and one of the better log flumes I've experienced. So, in 1995, riding on the success of their in-house engineering and hoping to add another highly themed attraction to the park, Rainbow's End undertook the project of designing and building their own roller coaster themed to a gold mine. The result is... kids, cover your ears. It's fucking weird. This ride is like IKEA designed a roller coaster. The parts almost fit together, but I'm pretty sure some of them are in the wrong place. What the ride does quite well is the theming. Rainbow's End certainly seemed to have a knack for that actually, for such a small park. And the ride has some excellent details that I really enjoy, but the ride itself, yeah, it's a weird one. Flawed by what seems to be just a fundamental misunderstanding of coaster design, Gold Rush features the most flat-out weird layout I've ever seen in my life, packed to the brim with jank, and featuring 2 lift hills, one in the middle of the ride, and one at the end. I've got to say, it packs a whole lot of charm if you ride in the knowledge that the park designed and built it themselves. There's definitely a homemade charm to it, but it's very janky, very strange, and just a wee bit painful, and I place it down here amongst the kiddie coasters just because of those facts. Speaking of kiddie coasters, we've only got a few left before we rank the best kiddie coaster in Oceania, so let's move on to number 28, Speedy Beetle at Luna Park, Melbourne. Sometimes you don't need to do something complicated, you just need to do something simple and do it well. And that's what Luna Park have done with their kiddie coaster. As previously mentioned, I do enjoy that the SBF spinners can provide some entertainment with a varied ride experience. But Speedy Beetle also takes it up a notch compared to Crazy Coaster and looks fantastic, especially at night. The ride features a great lighting package that actually makes it one of the most visually pleasing rides in this area of the park once the sun goes down. Plus, just like the other SBF spinners, it's comfortable, fun, and a crowd pleaser. I don't really have many complaints with this one, it's just a good choice of kiddie coaster for this park. Another good kiddie coaster choice was made by Dreamworld, coming in at number 27, the Big Red Boat. Yet another of the world's most popular coaster models, Big Red Boat is a simple Zamperla twin helix powered coaster, but Dreamworld really hit all the right notes with the theming and design. It's bright, eye-catching, and fun. The props in the middle of the layout give it some visual interaction, the station is cute with the beach umbrella shading, the train is vibrant and bright, and who doesn't love the wiggles? Plus, the ride is smooth and accommodating for adults with the exception of one little jolt in the final bend, which I believe must be down to some sort of manufacturing or construction error because it's been there since day one. Probably the only thing holding Big Red Boat back from being considered Australia's best kiddie coaster is that jolt and the relatively slow-paced layout compared to the next 2 entries on this list. Coming in at number 26 and taking the silver medal for kiddie coasters is SpongeBob's Boating School Blast at SeaWorld. Dragon Express, eat your heart out, because Zamperla clearly finally got this model right sometime between 2003 and 2015. SpongeBob not only looks better because SeaWorld actually put some effort into the theming in their upgraded Nickelodeon land, but it runs super smooth, is much more accommodating for larger riders, and has a final turn that isn't profiled like absolute trash. It's fun, cute, smooth, and great for the kids. There are some nice visual props included, and even some audio cues as well. It's a rare example of some real effort being put into a kiddie coaster, and I want SeaWorld to know that I appreciate that. And the crowds do too, because real talk for a moment, how come every time I go to SeaWorld, SpongeBob has one of the longest lines in the park? What is going on? I've had days where I've nearly walked on to Jet Rescue and then SpongeBob's line is outside the front entrance. Guys, it's not that amazing. It's just a kiddie coaster. Holy crap, calm down. Anyway, it's not even the best kiddie coaster in Australia, because that honour goes to Mining Racer Coaster at Gumbaya World. You know how Shrek is such a great movie because it manages to be entertaining for kids while also threading in some funny jokes for adults so that the parents can enjoy it too? Yeah, Mining Racer Coaster is the roller coaster equivalent of that. Yeah, it's great for kids, the theming looks pretty neat, especially on the queue building, all the same things I've said about the last few coasters, but Mining Racer Coaster also somehow packs some bizarrely good laterals that make it, dare I say it, entertaining to ride, even as an adult? On my first visit to Gumbaya World, Mining Racer Coaster claimed a rare new record for me. It became, and still is to this day, the only kiddie coaster that I've ever ridden more than once on the same visit. Usually, even for the really good ones, I'll ride for the credit, or just once with friends or family, and that's it. Mining Racer Coaster? I went back for a re-ride. It was actually fun. The main culprit are these sudden transitions on the SPF race coaster layout. It has Wild Mouse style laterals packed into a kiddie coaster package, and I love that. Sure, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, having strong laterals when the cars are quite cramped, but it wasn't so bad. Wild Mouse at Luna Park is worse if you're worried about discomfort. Best kiddie coaster in Australia, without a doubt. I have a lot of love for Mining Racer Coaster. Up next, we have the Alpine Coaster at Thredbo, holding out spot number 24. Full disclosure, I'm yet to make the trip, but let's be honest, we all know what to expect from these things. If you've ridden a toboggan, it's essentially the same. And we all know exactly why they're completely bang average. That one old lady or small child that is always 100% guaranteed to be on the car in front of you, riding along at 2 k's an hour. I'm sure Thredbo have done a fantastic job with theirs, but that is the one thing that has always bugged me with Alpine coasters, and I'd really love to see them implement automatic braking and take the control away from the riders. I know it sounds like a buzzkill thing to do, but really, think about it. You can't speed up on an Alpine coaster, you can only brake. So the only thing you're giving riders the ability to do is chicken out and ruin the ride for the next person behind them. Go flat out, or don't go at all. Seriously, get rid of the brake levers, put automatic safety trims on the track, and just send people down full speed. Give everyone the best experience possible instead of letting the nervous Nellies ruin it for everyone else. Moving up to spot number 23, and now we're moving into the coasters that I begin to think are pretty good, more good than bad. And first up is Boomerang at Luna Park, Sydney. Boomerang isn't much to look at, but it's a smooth, fun little family coaster with great views and some acceptable levels of force for what it is. The backwards leg is usually quite fun, and the helix around Freaky Frogs can have some good lateral and positive force. The first drop is also quite enjoyable in the back row, with just the faintest hint of floater airtime. Out of all the rides that Luna Park added in its 2021 expansion, I have to say that Boomerang was their best choice. It's the one ride that fits the bill of what they were looking for and runs smoothly, reliably, and without any major flaws. I'm not a huge fan of the Gerstlauer lap bars, but on a ride of this scale, they aren't a problem at all, because the positives aren't strong enough to pinch you on other rides such as Pegasus Express. If they had a little more thought into how the station and ride area looked, Boomerang would be much higher, but unfortunately it does suffer from some ride area ugliness. I am a fan of the colour scheme though, it goes nicely with Luna Park's funky vibe. Roadrunner Roller Coaster is another family coaster that just does the job reasonably well, and that's why it fits in at number 22. What separates it from Boomerang is the attention to aesthetics and theming. The desert landscaping, Looney Tunes props, and the blending of the ride's trains and colour scheme with the surrounding area just make it work much nicer with the kids' WB area than what Boomerang does with Lunaland. However, the Vekoma Junior Coaster experience, while longer and more forceful than the Gerstlauer shuttle coaster, is certainly rougher, particularly when you're closer towards the back of the train. The new Vekoma trains are an improvement, but only slightly. What they gain in comfort and reducing the lateral smashing of those transitions, they lose in the restrictiveness of the new Vekoma family lap bars, which are not great for those with larger thighs. Now that Movie World has more family coasters than they have ride mechanics for some reason, I do wonder how long Roadrunner has left to live, but for now, it's a functional little family coaster that does the job well enough. Nothing special, but decent. We stay at Movie World for the next inclusion on our list, which is Flash Speed Force, coming in at number 21. To be totally honest with you, I'm not sure what compelled VRTP to keep Surf Rider around after it was closed at Wet n Wild. Honestly, it was a bizarre choice to build it there in the first place, and after years of constant downtime, I really thought that they would just call it quits on their Intamin Surf Rider. But no, apparently Movie World was in desperate need of a generic off-the-shelf coaster that they could paint a bright colour and lazily theme to another DC superhero. Because they haven't got enough of those lying around. In all honesty, the Surf Rider is actually a pretty decently fun model though. The floater airtime once it hits full swing is pretty fun, and the spinning seats add an element of unpredictability, which can mean it's actually quite an intense experience sometimes. I'm not a huge fan of the over-the-shoulder restraints, and I'm incredibly frustrated that they went to the effort of adding a locking mechanism to prevent riders from undoing their own seatbelts. That's just another example of Movie World becoming an unnecessary nanny park to no real benefit to safety. They're becoming like one of those parents that has to wrap their child in bubble wrap before going to the playground. But all in all, while Flash Speed Force can be fun, the word that best describes it is just unnecessary. It doesn't really provide anything to the park. It's an old ride that's already facing maintenance issues just purely due to the age of the machine. It has a terribly short ride cycle. It's a continuation of the Green Lantern billboard style theming, which does nothing for the park's atmosphere. Really, this ride is just there taking up space. It's fine, actually, it's good, but it's not really needed. The same effect could have been accomplished with a fairly cheap and basic flat ride, and at least then, you'd be getting it brand new. This is the final one of the inclusions on this list that I'm yet to ride, thanks to a disappointing visit where Kansas Twister was completely closed just weeks after opening, but I'll still trust it and place it at number 20. I've ridden Vekoma family boomerangs elsewhere around the world, including some very new models like Quest at Emerald Park, and I can confirm that they are smooth, comfortable, and fun little family coasters. Kansas Twister would be further helped by the dueling interactions and the nice theming around the ride area, so I imagine it's pretty good. But I do have some concerns. Within less than a month of opening, Movie World have seemed more than willing to run the coaster on only one side, begging the question why they bothered to build a dueling coaster in the first place if it's only going to duel during the very peak seasons. If you're visiting outside of school holidays, there's a very good chance you'll only get to experience one side of Kansas Twister, which to me is an absolute waste. The interactions are part of the ride experience, and I think Movie World should be doing much better. At its core though, Kansas Twister looks like a smooth, fun little family coaster. If not for the generally short ride experience, I would say that it is a definite upgrade on Roadrunner and could serve as the park's core family coaster, and I actually think that might be the direction we're headed in once Roadrunner is eventually retired. The coasters continue to improve as we move into the teens, and coming in at number 19 is Aussie World's signature coaster, Dingo Racer. Opening in 2022, this spinning wild mouse from French manufacturer Revachon was the first of its kind installed permanently at a park, with the new stall turn layout. The stall turn element, from which the new layout gets its name, is actually fantastic, and it really makes the ride stand out compared to other spinning mice. Aussie World also put some great effort into the ride's theming, and while it's a little confusing and incoherent, and I don't really know what's going on, I do appreciate the effort, which even includes the use of some of the old cars from the park's now defunct wooden wild mouse. The main problem with Dingo Racer, however, is the restraints. And this is consistent across all of the Revachon models. The lap bar is not adequately padded, and it frequently punches you in the guts when you experience strong lateral forces, particularly if you happen to be spinning at an unusual angle. The seats are also cramped, leading to you slamming into the sides quite often. Dingo Racer is just alright. It's certainly not a headlining coaster for a park, and those restraints need some improvement. New Zealand peaks out at number 18 with the best permanent coaster in the island country, Corkscrew Coaster at Rainbow's End. It is just a simple arrow loop and corkscrew model, but Rainbow's End have given the ride some nice touches, like the rainbow train and the rainbow track on the corkscrew, which have really given it iconic status at the park. It's also a fascinating ride if you're something of an arrow historian, with the classic foot pedal released over the shoulder restraints, and even a stacked maintenance station for the ride's single train, which cycles through the use of its cars instead of having a spare train. When I rode it, the red lead car was under maintenance, giving it this bizarre appearance with seemingly no lead car. The old arrow corkscrews are nothing particularly special. The inversions are not forceful at all, and the ride is very short with not much to it. However, I did love the ride for its charm, and it was much smoother and more comfortable than I expected it to be. As far as coasters go, it's definitely the standout at Rainbow's End for ride experience. So, New Zealand tops out at 18th on our ranking, which just says to me that the country is screaming out for a new headlining coaster. I would love to see Rainbow's End install something new. I think a Vekoma STC would be a great fit for them, looping around the edge of the park above the go-kart tracks. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. So it's down to Australia, and coming in at number 17 is the world's oldest operating roller coaster, Scenic Railway, at Luna Park, Melbourne. Based on the designs of famous coaster designer Lamarcus Thompson, the Great Scenic Railway was an opening day attraction at Melbourne's Luna Park all the way back in 1912, making the ride 113 years old, and it has been continuously in operation ever since. The ride even survived operating at a reduced capacity during the bombing threats of World War II, and several times when it appeared that Luna Park may close permanently. As far as roller coasters go, it doesn't get much more primitive than this, certainly not on this scale. With nearly a kilometre of track, the Scenic Railway circumnavigates the entire park twice. It's one of the last remaining coasters on the planet to utilise an onboard brakeman who controls the speed of the train to prevent valleying and derailments instead of automatic brakes being mounted to the track. This means that your ride experience can be quite variable on the Scenic Railway, as some brakemen are more cautious than others, and each have their own technique when it comes to the application of the brakes. All in all, if you lower your expectations under the knowledge that the ride is over a century old, Scenic Railway is quite enjoyable. It has some good drops, great views as the name suggests, and it's just the classic amusement ride experience that is rapidly becoming extinct elsewhere in the world. Even if it's not a record-breaking thrill coaster, the Scenic Railway should be on every enthusiast bucket list for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, the capacity does completely suck though, so expect a long wait. Coming in just ahead of the Scenic Railway is Storm Coaster, a Mark Rides water coaster at SeaWorld on the Gold Coast. All rides have a service life, and eventually they need to be replaced. But if you ask me, there are a few fundamental rules that should be followed when replacing a beloved ride. First of all, the ride needs to live up to the original experience. Not just the original ride, but the entire experience. For example, if you're replacing a beloved thrill coaster, you need a new thrilling roller coaster to fill that place in the lineup. And if you're replacing one of the best themed rides ever made that was a beloved classic with an incredible storyline, spectacular visual effects, and a lengthy ride experience, don't build an off-the-shelf coaster model with an incredibly short layout and a bunch of very basic theming elements thrown in. Look, Storm Coaster is fine, the ride is relatively smooth, the flow to air time on the final drop is excellent, and out of context, it also looks pretty good, particularly by Australian standards. Someone did put a lot of effort into the facade and the theming, and I appreciate their work, but in reality, the ride does consist of just a single helix and a drop, and it's replacing a beloved flume ride with a fully immersive story that lasted 8 minutes and even had fire effects. It belongs here in the decent to average category, but I can't help having a bitter taste in my mouth about it because Bermuda Triangle deserved better as a replacement. Where have all our dark rides gone? Number 15, however, was not a poor decision by the park. In fact, I think this might be one of the most intelligent ride purchases a park has ever made. We are, of course, talking about the half of Gumbaya World's 2022 investment, that is Project Zero. Formerly Buzzsaw at Dreamworld, this Mara Skyloop moved down to the Melbourne Park after closing at its former Gold Coast home in 2021. Towards the end of its life at Dreamworld, Buzzsaw had become rough, unreliable, unpopular, and was awkwardly wedged into the park on the very edge of what was once Gold Rush country. For Dreamworld, it had definitely become dead weight that they needed to shed. But one park's trash is another park's treasure. Gumbaya World refurbished Buzzsaw and gave it a new home, and I would say that the ride has definitely never looked back. For what would have been a fairly big discount, Gumbaya World got themselves a titanic, unique, and intense thrill ride to add to their growing lineup. It's still not perfect. It does shuffle a bit, which can be unpleasant considering the ride's intensity, and it is certainly a one-trick pony. But it features great hang time, insane positive G-forces, and some awesome speed to it. For a park of Gumbaya World's size, it's a great fit, and I love what they've done with it. The theming perhaps doesn't quite live up to the rest of the park's standards. They certainly did a better job with TNT than Project Zero, but I still stand by saying that Gumbaya World made a great decision with this purchase. Sometimes you just can't beat the classics, and coming in at number 14 is one of the great Aussie classics, the Wild Mouse at Luna Park, Sydney. A design dating back to park manager Ted Hopkins and his business partner Dick Pearce in the 1950s, today the Wild Mouse is heritage listed and one of the last remaining wooden Wild Mouse coasters on the planet, which is an awful shame because the experience is unlike anything else. Imagine, if you will, the best Wild Mouse you know. The one that produces the best laterals, the best airtime, and the most fast-paced, fun layout. Then imagine one of your favorite wooden coasters that isn't smooth. Think about that classic wooden rattle that gives it that old school charm. Now smash those two together like you're Shaggy and Scooby making some ridiculous concoction of a sandwich, and congratulations, now you've got Wild Mouse. Hurtling around the track in a glorified bathtub of a car, this coaster gives you laterals that leave you dead certain you're about to topple into the harbour below, and some awesome airtime to go with it. And if that crazy, surprisingly intense ride experience isn't enough for you, it's full of the classic Luna Park Midway charm that makes it one of the world's best heritage amusement parks. The Wild Mouse is a special piece of history, but beyond that, it's also just a damn good little coaster. Lucky number 13, and just ahead of its neighbour at the park, is Big Dipper at Luna Park, Sydney. The third iteration of Luna Park's Big Dipper roller coaster is a first-of-its-kind single-rail launch coaster from Intamin. The Hot Racer model made its debut with this compact, punchy installation at Sydney's Harbourside Park, and it's got a lot going for it. While it does suffer from the same ugly aesthetic as most of the new rides, Big Dipper is certainly the crown jewel of the expansion, with a compact custom layout that goes from strength to strength. It features a great second launch, a couple of brilliant inversions, tight transitions that induce some nice force, and even a pop of very decent airtime. Unfortunately, being the prototype, the ride does suffer from some teething issues, most notably the rattle caused by the extremely lightweight trains and the incredibly low capacity with just 7 riders per train. But for a ride that fits into such a tight little footprint, it's got a lot going right for it. Intamin's tyre-powered launches do seem to go really well in Australia. One day, the addition of some upgraded trains would really make this coaster shine for Luna Park, because unfortunately that rattle is very noticeable, particularly if you're seated in the back. Just sneaking ahead of Big Dipper into spot number 12 is Green Lantern Coaster at Warner Brothers Movie World. I've ridden another S&S El Loco at Flamingo Land in the UK, and I must say Green Lantern is the perfected version of the model. It boasts far superior restraints, much better pacing, a more forceful first drop, and just a better experience all around. The hang time is much improved with the use of a lap bar instead of the usual shoulder pads, and the 4-across seating gives the outside seats a different ride experience, sitting off to the side of the track instead of above it. Green Lantern is yet again another ride that suffers from Movie World forgetting what theming is, and the operations are also terrible for a ride that should be designed for pretty consistent dispatches. But once you do get on the ride, I think it's highly underrated. It's a funky, forceful little ride with some of my favourite inversions in the country. Do I think it belongs at Movie World? No. But would I be sad to see it closed down? Absolutely. It's a nice number 3 for the park, a good, compact little thrill coaster that packs a decent punch. Falling just short of the top 10 is another ride that I think is criminally underrated. We have Gold Coaster at Dreamworld. First appearing as the second iteration of Luna Park Sydney's Big Dipper, this custom arrow looper was relocated to Dreamworld after noise complaints caused its closure, and the temporary closure of the entirety of Luna Park. So the first thing that you'll notice about Gold Coaster on your first visit is how absolutely bizarre the layout and orientation of the station and queue are. Much like today's Big Dipper, the Arrow version was designed for the station to sit atop this building, so the entire ride is quite highly elevated off the ground, which is also what makes it an utterly bizarre Arrow looper. The layout of the ride was designed to be compact and elongated to fit along the narrow layout of Luna Park, which means that Arrow decided for a 40-meter lift hill and a layout that is almost entirely downhill with very little interruption. While most Arrow loopers feature their inversions early in the layout as some of the first elements, Gold Coaster's Sidewinder and Vertical Loop are the last two elements, meaning Arrow designed the coaster to continually pick up speed until the very end in order to make those inversions work. And as a result, I would describe Gold Coaster as a beautiful car crash. Yes, it's rough. Yes, there are a couple of janky moments. The new Vekoma vest restraints do make those moments much more bearable though. What you're really riding for is how ridiculous the ride gets once you head around the bank turn at the base of the waterslide tower. Holy shit, this ride pulls some insane positives, and the vertical loop will murder you in the front row. I would describe Gold Coaster as Dreamworld's beautiful mess. It's a stupid, stupid design of a ride, but my god, somehow, it's a whole lot of fun.
Romy, which roller coaster is going to be number 10, Romy? Romy, excuse me, sir. Do you think Leviathan will have dropped any places due to its increasing roughness? Romy, answer my questions.
Anyway, coming in at number 10 is Abyss at Adventure World. There is a lot to be said about how Gerstlauer Eurofighters age. They very quickly become rough monstrosities that headbang relentlessly, but there's also a lot to be said about how ridiculously forceful they are, and mostly, how unexpected their airtime is. Abyss boasts one of the best first drops in Australia, some incredibly powerful airtime moments, a few brilliant inversions, and theming that is atmospheric, if a little basic. Yes, it's rough as nuts, but it came as a very pleasant surprise how willing I was to tolerate that roughness in exchange for the sheer brilliance of the ride experience. I certainly see where Australian Coaster Club founder Ed Dickinson was coming from when he described it as possibly Australia's best coaster at the time of its opening in 2013. Do I agree with that? No, but I don't think it's an entirely outlandish claim. Keep your head back, ride in the front row, and Abyss will surprise you. It's a powerful little beast that really does pack a wallop. I thoroughly enjoy it. Coming in at number 9 is...
This transmission has been intercepted by Village Roadshow Theme Parks. Maloney's Coasters is now a property of VRTP. We have deleted all previous videos and will now be replacing future content with pro-VRTP material. For example, coming in at number 9 is Flight of the Wicked Witch. This is a flawless family coaster. There is nothing wrong with it at all, and anyone who says otherwise deserves to be publicly mocked in online forums. Anyone who criticizes VRTP is fake clickbait news.
Sorry, I'm back. Don't know what happened there. My recording software just went a bit crazy. But anyway, yes, number 9 actually is Flight of the Wicked Witch. I'll start off by saying there is a lot wrong with this ride. The theming is patchy, it's far too low capacity for the park's purposes, the operations are absolutely abysmal. It wasn't a well-executed ride at all. But ultimately, this layout of Vekoma SFC is still one of the best family coaster layouts I've ever seen. It's speedy, it's glass smooth, it's quite surprisingly forceful, particularly through the first drop and overbank, and it's just damn enjoyable. For all its operational issues and letdowns, I don't think I can deny that on its surface, Flight of the Wicked Witch is a pretty good coaster. And look, I'll concede some things to Movie World. The theming that actually is there, it looks pretty good. And there are some nice interactions with the queue and pathways. I think this is another Green Lantern scenario where I think it's a good ride, but I still don't think it quite fits at Movie World. Number 8 is Jungle Rush at Dreamworld. Sorry, VRTP. Jungle Rush and Rivertown in general was the clear winner of the summer of 2024. What Vekoma produced at Dreamworld was a new, innovative family coaster, and Dreamworld proceeded to also turn it into one of Australia's best themed attractions. I actually think it could gain a couple of spots on my next few visits because I know the park had been working on improvements to the theming, which is my only major criticism. When I first rode, the ride did feel slightly incomplete in terms of theming, which was particularly noticeable due to the attention to detail elsewhere in Rivertown. It's still fabulous, don't get me wrong. The gem mechanism on the turntable is such a cool concept. I love the use of sound, the temple building looks gorgeous, it's fantastic. I just feel that more could have been done, comparatively speaking. The ride itself is quite good, it's smooth, there's good variation, the mix between forwards and backwards is nice, and there's even some surprising moments of force for a family coaster. I think Jungle Rush is a really solid inclusion at Dreamworld and probably one of the best family coasters in the country. It makes me very excited for the future of the park because it's leagues ahead of anything they've added in years in terms of attention to detail and quality, which is very encouraging. We need a park that's committed to making itself as beautiful, detailed, and just gorgeous as possible, and I hope that Dreamworld is looking at being that park going forward. Moving on up to number 7, and one that I believe is one of Australia's most underrated rides, Jet Rescue at SeaWorld. When you compare Jet Rescue with its older cousin at Dreamworld, the difference is night and day. Intamin really went back to the drawing board and turned water into wine. First of all, they drastically simplified the restraint system to make it far more comfortable and, actually make sense. And then they realized their mistake with the elevated drawn-out layout and created a coaster that clings to the ground and whips through tight transitions. Jet Rescue does suffer from length issues, but its second half is absolutely remarkable. The sense of speed that it generates is completely ludicrous, and when it's running well, those transitions are Pantherian-like. It really tries to throw you out of your seat. This coaster also continues the trend of Intamin tyre launches being absolutely incredible, at least in Australia. The second launch has incredible kick and might be one of my favourite launches in the entire country. It always surprises me how quickly it kicks in and how much speed the ride picks up on the second launch before you hurtle into that sudden right-hand turn. Really, aside from its short length, Jet Rescue remains one of the best roller coaster packages in Australia. They say good things come in small packages, and that's certainly true with this little beast of a coaster. Up next at number 6 is TNT at Canobie World.
This transmission has been intercepted by Village Roadshow theme parks. Again, this is unfair. It's the same ride.
Yeah, I know, shut up. But TNT achieves what Flight of the Wicked Witch failed to, and it's actually a charming ride with nice theming. Actually, it's really charming. Ridiculously charming. It never fails to put a smile on my face. I think we're actually incredibly lucky to have a ride like this. What Canobie World seems to get right, more often than not, is the particular brand of Australiana that they're after. There's a larrikinism, a lightheartedness, and a genuine feel-good factor about their theming, and TNT is probably the best themed ride at the park. It boasts the same smooth, surprising layout that Flight of the Wicked Witch has, but with gorgeous theming and little details that are sure to put a smile on your face. I think that's what makes the difference here. As I mentioned, Jungle Rush could rise up with a bit of extra love over the next few months and take this spot, but for now, I actually prefer TNT. It may be shorter, but it's got fun, whippy moments, and I just think the theming feels like a more modest, but more complete package. I guess I'm saying my favorite thing about TNT is its personality. It really takes on a life of its own, and I think it's worth the trip to Canobie World on its own for that. I really hope the park has plans for future editions because I'd love to see what else they can accomplish. We're into the top 5 now, and I would say that these are the absolute elites of the Australian coaster landscape right now. To start us off at number 5, Scooby-Doo Spooky Coaster. Of course, there is an asterisk over this one, as we don't quite know what the finished product will look like when the ride reopens in the coming months. It could be drastically improved and rise up, or it could diminish further in quality and drop down. But I don't think it's possible to deny how marvellous this ride was at its best and what a significant role it played in the upbringing of so many Australians. If you're a Gold Coast local or an Aussie park enthusiast, I'm sure you have some sort of memory of Scooby-Doo that is formative of your theme park experience. It's just such a complete package. From that brilliant dark ride section, to the quirkiness of the elevator lift hill and backwards drop, to the soundtrack blasting while you traverse the Wild Mouse section, it's truly the closest that Australia has to something like Space Mountain. That complex, intricate indoor coaster that feels like another world once you step inside. Right now, the ride is seemingly just a matter of weeks away from reopening. Movie World have been posting vague teasers on social media, and that leads me to the conclusion that they're getting very close to being able to confirm an opening date. It will be so good to have Scooby-Doo back. I don't think we've ever had another coaster like it in terms of theming. It's just a magnificent ride. Coming in at number 4, we have Dreamworld's signature launch coaster, Steel Taipan. This is another ride that seems to grow on me more and more after every visit. To an outside onlooker, it might appear to be just a Blue Fire clone with a few added features, but Taipan sets itself apart quite well with both of those added features. First of all, Blue Fire itself, it's pretty damn good. It's a smooth, rapid launch coaster with some great moments, most notably the Blue Fire roll, which is one of the craziest inversions out there. But Steel Taipan is not your standard Blue Fire clone. The first of two differences is the twisted spike and swing launch. While I am still a fervent believer that the swing launch actually weakens the ride overall, the reverse spike makes up for that loss. It's one of the best elements on the ride, with a powerful blast of positive G-force at the base and an awesome bit of floater airtime as the train peaks the spike. But the better of the added features is the spinning rear seats. Oh my god, these things are insane. I am yet to experience a Mark Extreme spinner, but I imagine this is what they're like. Truly disorienting, bafflingly crazy, just pure awesomeness. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the tail whip seats are better than either of VRTP's backward seats. They add a sense of unpredictability to the ride and can really offer some awesome moments, taking inversions sideways or backwards. If you don't ride tail whip, you're missing the full Steel Taipan experience. But also, Steel Taipan has grown from a top 10 to a top 5 coaster for me just by the way it has run over the course of its life so far. It's still glass smooth, it's been maintained very well, and it actually seems to run better now than when it first opened. I've always complained that Steel Taipan runs a little slowly for a Blue Fire clone, but on my most recent rides, that was far from the case. It was actually hauling. I still think Dreamworld needs a new headlining coaster, but on the day that they get one, Steel Taipan will make the perfect number 2. And speaking of parks having the perfect number 2 coaster, our bronze medal goes to Superman Escape at Warner Brothers Movie World. Let me give you a history lesson. In the late 1990s, launch coasters became the trendy thing for manufacturers to build. Both Premier Rides and Intamin had played their part in introducing LIM and LSM magnetic launch technology to the industry, and things started to really kick off from there. But Intamin wanted to go bigger and better, so in 2002, they introduced a hydraulic launch mechanism to the market. That mechanism would go on to allow Intamin to break the height and speed records for roller coasters repeatedly with Top Thrill Dragster, King Dakar, and Formula Rossa. And along the way, Australia got a taste of that hydraulic goodness as well, and boy, it's something. Nothing quite matches the Intamin hydraulic launch for sheer power. There's a suddenness to the launch, and yet also a profound smoothness. It's gobsmacking in its sudden application of sheer raw power. But what sets Superman apart from even other hydraulic launch coasters is its theming. The pre-show is excellent and really caps the ride off as a complete experience. After the launch as well, the ride packs 3 awesome airtime moments and a visually appealing layout that towers over the main entrance of Movie World. It has become one of their signature landmarks, and rightfully so. Nowadays, it may rattle a little, and those over-the-shoulder restraints are certainly outdated, but nothing can take away what a brilliant addition to the park Superman has been. I'll be sad to see it go the same way as other hydraulic coasters seem to be at the moment, and I'm hoping that despite clear and obvious reliability issues, Movie World will cling on to it as long as they possibly can. Moving into the silver medal place, and it goes to Leviathan at SeaWorld. The Gravity Group are excellent at one thing, and that's pacing. In my experience, their wooden coasters never fail to deliver a layout that's rapid, stacked with airtime, and flows beautifully from one element to the next. Leviathan is a coaster that will leave you trying to catch your breath. It never gives you a moment to stop and think. Now that is a concern, as much as it is a piece of praise. Do I trust SeaWorld and VRTP's maintenance record enough to believe that they can maintain a gravity group Woody? I've seen bigger and better parks try and fail. Cuchulainn, for example, is maintained fabulously, but it still carries some dreadful jolts that can be really painful for the unprepared. And while it's technically a CCI design maintained by the Gravity Group, Tonnerre de Zeus is one of the roughest coasters I've ever been on. But for now, while it only has a few years of wear and tear under its belt, Leviathan is still a fabulous, lengthy, brilliantly paced and fast-flowing airtime machine. I do foresee a future where the backwards seats will become unbearable and the ride will require some serious defensive riding, but let's enjoy it while we can. In all my travels, it's rare to find a coaster whose layout keeps you guessing like this one and yet continually delivers. Every airtime moment hits, every element absolutely slaps. It may be rough, but Levy is a masterpiece. And now for the number one place. The best coaster in Australia and New Zealand is, of course, DC Rivals Hypercoaster. I know I've said this a million times over the channel, and yet I have so many Leviathan defenders in my Discord and comment sections. I'm not sure how anyone could come to the conclusion that these two coasters are even on the same level. Forces and intensity-wise, DC Rivals blows almost everything else out of the water. Its airtime is ludicrously powerful, a rare example of true ejector airtime in Australia. Of course, the biggest difference is in terms of comfort, where DC Rivals tramples all over Leviathan. After 8 years of operation, it is still incredibly smooth and boasts lap bars that are far less restrictive and aggressive on your hips than the Timberliner trains. It is a bigger, faster, more powerful, more aggressive ride that is far more eye-catching from off-ride and boasts the far superior backwards experience. I would go so far as to say that DC Rivals is the only coaster in Australia that I would truly describe as world-class. Other coasters may be good, great even, but only one stands out as one of the best coasters not only in Australia, but on the entire planet. It is going to take something truly special to topple this Mark masterpiece out of first place because it is an absolute machine, and that's that. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to a commenter at Annoying Coaster Kid on YouTube. Annoying Coaster Kid said that they never heard me make the sounds I made on Goodrix before. Thanks for your comment, Annoying Coaster Kid. I certainly hope I'll never have to make those sounds again. Goodrix was a pretty awful experience. Although I've heard that the new trains with vest restraints have improved the ride, so I will be willing to give it a second chance the next time I'm back at Park Asterix. Certainly not one of my favorite coasters. Thank you so much for watching and for being a supporter of my channel. If you'd like to be featured in my next video, you can leave a comment, send a message in my Discord linked in the description, or you can send me something in the mail. My PO box details are on the screen now. For now, this is Maloney's Coasters from the Australian bush, reminding you to be kind to one another, have a lovely day, and keep gaining credits. Bye.